Hi, welcome everyone. Thank you for joining us for Beyond Broth's first summit, Nurturing a New World from Chaos to Goodness. I'm Grace Ventura, founder and creator of Beyond Broth. Joining us today is Laurie Wagner, who I consider to be a trailblazer in the field of expressive, creative writing. She's the creator of 27 Powers, which we will find out more about, a writing teacher and coach, an author of 7 books, mixed media artist. She loves making collages, which I think is so totally cool, and a mom of 2. And I really love this description that she decided to call herself, a tender truth serum in human form. Wow, that just elicits just such a strong, beautiful, just such a touching feeling inside. So without further ado, welcome, Laurie.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Yes. So I would love to just begin with some questions that I have, and we'll go from there and see how it all unfolds.
Okay, great.
So the first thing is what inspired you to begin a writing practice?
You know, I was one of those kids who, was always drawing, was always making music, listening to music, was always making up stories, I made comic books as a kid. So I was just one of those people who from a very early age just needed to express themselves and just continue to express themselves in whatever way possible, even if it was really rudimentary or really bad or, that was just the way for me. And so that just made sense that as I continued on in my path through life and high school and college and out of college, I was always doing something. So writing is just one of the practices I have. Writing, there's so much out there in the world that happens to us that touches us. And then we want to, people like me and maybe like you and others here want to express that. Some people express their experience through food. Some people express it through art making or through sound or music. And I love telling stories. Like one of my very favorite early quotes was, true life is, what was it? Life is stranger than fiction. Forgetting who that is, I'm forgetting, everyone who's listening to this probably knows that quote, but it's life is stranger than fiction. And indeed it is. And so, as a way, I've always been like, one of my favorite games as a kid and also still is just people watching, just watching the human animal and just noticing and the smallest things. And there's these sort of overt things we see, and then there's the secret, quiet things we see, and putting that all together continues to be really interesting to me. So writing is just, so I have a practice. I started teaching something called wild writing, which I'm sure we can talk about. And that began my deep, deep, deep practice about 30 years ago of this particular style of coming to the page.
Yeah. I love the idea of storytelling. It's an art that, of course, is in many traditions that's handed down. That's how many cultures learn about each other. And what a stunning way to be able to find your voice and be able to express your experience. Of course, there are filters, but what a beautiful way, as we all have our different points of view. So I just...
Well, one of the things about that's so important is the telling of the story is definitely part of it, but what happens prior is you have to listen. And so you have to be tuned in to listening and being present and observing. So even if you're walking and you're seeing or you're hearing or you're participating, you're present. And then you're letting that in and you're allowing that to come up, that turns into story. So even so that process in and of itself is very healing, because you're not moving ahead in the future and you're not way back, and you You are in the moment, you're capturing everything. And that in and itself is valuable before the story even comes, you know? So that's why
So,
the practice is so healing, wild writing anyway. Yeah.
yeah. What, interesting. I mean, of course, people heal through different means, and some are more, hopefully people find their outlet and their way to do that.
Mm-hmm.
I used to journal, and I still journal. You know, I love, or writing poetry, or, you know, just allowing something to flow through.
Mm-hmm.
And it's so interesting to me because actually when I dance is when I can
Mm-hmm.
hear the, or
Mm-hmm.
see the whole thing unfold in front of me. Somehow when I'm moving,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
that story can come through easier. And it's like, that's how my mind gets out of the way. And I
That's
think that's,
right. That's like somatic. It comes through you through a somatic. And I think that's wonderful. I think that whatever way we can, we can pay attention and to pull through. As you're reminding me of a funny thing. I have a mini trampoline here, and especially during the pandemic, I've been trampolining a lot. And a couple of weeks ago, I was coming up with a lecture for my students on polishing our work, and I delivered the entire lecture as I jumped on the trampoline, and it was a lecture. It wasn't live. So then I had to go back and transcribe it, but it came during the trampoline, and I thought that's fantastic.
yeah,
So
it's
whatever, wherever
interesting.
you can find it, wherever you notice that you're more of a portal, like music for people, or, whatever it is for you, like grab it. Writing's not for everyone. And then people have a lot of ideas about writing too that keep them from writing. So.
Well, it's interesting because I love writing, and over the years I've noticed that because there's probably so much more distraction that's out there,
Mhm.
that I I need a tool to get my mind out of the way enough
Mhm.
to and be able to allow my voice
Yeah.
to come through.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
that's why, I keep referencing wild writing, which is what I teach. And that's not a sales tactic here. It's
No,
actually,
we want to hear about it.
yeah. Well, the thing about wild writing, which is so beautiful, is that we write as fast as we can, pen never leaving the page. So we are
Hmm.
actually taking the mind out of it as much as we can, because there's so many distractions, and because there's so much stuff around writing and around doing something well. We're really trying to bypass the critical voice, and we're trying to bypass the part of us that wants to do it right. And so, the instruction in wild writing is always, write as poorly as possible. Write as poorly as possible, because we really need to get past that. And so the instruction is so simple. We write as fast as we can, pen never leaving the page, with jump off lines and prompts, but we just keep going, and we're trying to outrun the part that's trying to put it together well. And I say that because we're so distracted, because there's so much going on, and especially now in our lives, we're just sort of assaulted with so much that's so deep. I'm very interested in simple practices, simple, accessible practices, like a 15-minute writing practice where you get to write as poorly as possible. Like, what? That's, how could that possibly be good? It turns out to be very good, because we are getting out of the way of all the noise. And it's the
Mhm.
writing really quickly and the prompts that really take us there.
That's awesome. I love, and because that's basically what I was describing. You have to get the mind out of the way,
Right.
and I mean that's the thing that I think is truly tearing us apart all the time. It creates separation. It creates
Yeah.
doubt. It creates fear. It creates all of it. And this practice seems to really be able to support going into the heart and into the more visceral um, feeling, sensation, body embodiment place.
Intuition, yeah, intuition, instinct. And really what we're practicing is we're practicing saying yes to what's coming. Here comes a word. Here comes a thought. Here comes a moment. Yes to what's yes, yes, yes. We're writing it all down. We're channeling the whole thing. For instance, imagine being on a dance floor and, you know, you're moving around and then you get this sort of thought to like fling your arms up like that. But then you have another thought going, don't do that. That's too, or we're saying yes to fling your arms out. You know, this is a saying yes to what's coming practice. And what that does for us is it clears the pipes. And all that gunk about what we can and cannot do or say, or what will be threatening to us because people will think or whatever, we're cleaning those pipes. Yes, yes, yes. We're saying yes to what's coming. And so I sometimes liken it to like a chiropractic adjustment. You know, the idea is, I'm not a chiropractor, but you know, that you're sort of organizing the bones, right? So that they're going to lay cleanly on top of one another, so that when you sit or lay down or get up or move, the bones are actually, you know, where they should be in place. So they're aligned. And this practice is like a psychic alignment, because when you say yes to what's coming, when you honor the words, when you honor the wrong words, when you say the thing that's, you know, clogging up the system, you are clearing out your sort of your psychic alignment. And so you are resting in something authentic in you, because you're letting all the little authentic little children, all the little messy little misfits come through. And when you do that, there's a calm that comes over you. It is like a psychic alignment. You're not pushing anything back. You don't, you know, you're not letting the shadow take over. You're going, shadow, welcome. And that's very, very healing. And it makes for really beautiful writing, because what happens then is when you're generous like that, when you allow onto the page the stuff that you don't want to talk about, like we have a prompt, and the prompt is, you know, here are a few things I won't be writing about. That's a fantastic writing prompt, because you know, we don't even have to write about those things, but there's, oh, by the way, and this and this. And then you find yourself writing about those things. And when you're doing that, it's kind of like sitting with a really good friend and going, there's some things I need to talk about. And that's really healing. And so it makes for really beautiful writing, but also, so then you get to see your own self on the page like that. But then if you share that work with others, or you teach from a place of transparency or authenticity, you're encouraging and inviting other people to do the same. And when you're in a writing class, for instance, and people are writing really authentic, really, they've got a lot of skin in the game, really generously, the whole room changes, because people say, oh my God. And then that's how you change the waters of your life, is because you come from this place, you share from this place, and other people see that the water is just fine, and they join you. And that's how you change the waters of your community in this particular practice.
Love it.
Yeah.
Giving permission. It's not only giving permission, but it's the way, it's interesting. It's how, as a coach, when I would work with people, it's how I created rapport.
Right.
Or, you know, it's when I'm vulnerable, when I'm open and revealing the things that people wouldn't, you know, they'd be afraid to, it says, it's okay. I accept, it's safe here. It's safe here.
And what's so interesting and what's wonderful about it is that as a facilitator, or as anyone, just if you're sharing with people, you sacrifice your own facade in order to serve the community. You sacrifice your own, you know, and of course we have egos, and we want to be received, and we want to be liked, and, you know, to be understood by others, but you have to almost risk being misunderstood or judged in order to do the deeper work.
Absolutely. It's, yeah, I mean, it's that humbleness, call it humility, if you will, but somehow humility has a more negative connotation to me. And I think of it more as being humble. And I guess, you know, you can get to that place of, it doesn't matter what someone thinks, because you have that experience that is so healing, and you know it's good for you, and you know it's in your integrity. You know it's in your truth.
I mean, I still think, I think like I've noticed for myself, as my work has continued to get out there, I need to really amp up my self-care, so that when I get whatever the situation is, my likes are rising or falling, you know, or whatever that looks like, find a center in myself so that I'm not just a leaf in the wind of that
Yeah.
ego thing, but I'm a human being. So of course I can feel it. But if I have some self-care going on, then I have a more soft place to receive myself as I feel hurt or unseen or whatever that gets tripped, misunderstood,
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, that, you bring right back to me, as I said, the qualities that I feel we as a human race need to bring to the surface, bring out, not only bring out, but bring in,
Mm-hmm.
is those qualities of goodness and kindness and gentleness, respect, understanding and compassion, self-love.
I was
You know,
going to say it starts here.
it has to. Any of it has to start here.
Mm-hmm.
So I am wondering if you could offer an experience of that for people right now. Just a little.
I'll just take you through a quick wild writing, okay, Grace? And what I'm going to do is I'm going to read a poem to you twice. And I just want you to relax. I just want you, if you want, you can close your eyes. And as you listen, just relax yourself, like let your belly fall over your jeans and just feel like maybe I'm like your kindergarten teacher and it's nap time and you've had a nice day and now you get to lie down and your teacher's going to read you something and you just get to be sort of soothed by it and let it fall into you, okay? And notice as I'm reading to you, and I will read it twice, notice if you have some thoughts on something. Maybe a memory gets triggered. Maybe there's a thought that comes. And just pay attention to that, because that's, for me, a gift of the creative unconscious delivering you something. So there's no right way to address this poem. And I'll read it twice so you have time, okay? And then I'll tell you what we're gonna do. Okay, so it's Ellen Bass, who's a really terrific poet in Santa Cruz. And this is a poem called If You Knew. What if you knew you'd be the last to touch someone? If you were taking tickets, for example, at the theater, tearing them, giving back the ragged stubs, you might take care to touch that palm, brush your fingertips along the lifeline's crease. When a man pulls his wheeled suitcase too slowly through the airport, when the car in front of me doesn't signal, when the clerk at the pharmacy won't say thank you, I don't remember they're going to die. A friend told me she'd been with her aunt. They just had lunch, and the waiter, a young gay man with plum black eyes, joked as he served the coffee, kissed her aunt's powdered cheek when they left. Then they walked half a block, and her aunt dropped dead on the sidewalk. How close does the dragon's spume have to come? How wide does the crack in heaven have to split? What would people look like if we could see them as they are, soaked in honey, stung and swollen, reckless, pinned against time? I'm going to read it to you again, but this is a really beautiful poem. She writes what she calls praise poems because she knows we're going to die. And so whenever she sits down to write a poem, she always wants to recognize both the living and the dying, that we are here now, and that is also coming. And that's very, very important, right? Because that's presence and that's appreciation. So what's going to happen is I'm going to read it again, and I'm going to throw you a couple lines. And when I throw you those lines, generally we'll write for 15 minutes, but for our purposes, you and I will do it with you, and we'll write for 5 minutes as fast as you can. I'm going to give you these jump off lines. You're going to choose one, and then you're going to go. You're going to write as fast as you can, pen never leaving the page, even if what you're writing is, I don't know what I'm writing, or I didn't know Laurie was going to do this with us, or whatever. 5 minutes is not a long time, okay? So I'm going to read it to you one more time. Beautiful poem, If You Knew, Ellen Bass. What if you knew you'd be the last to touch someone? If you were taking tickets, for example, at the theater, tearing them, giving back the ragged stubs, you might take care to touch that palm, brush your fingertips along the lifeline's crease. When a man pulled his wheeled suitcase too slowly through the airport, when the car in front of me doesn't signal, when the clerk at the pharmacy won't say thank you, I don't remember they're going to die. A friend told me she'd been with her aunt. They just had lunch, and the waiter, a young gay man with plum black eyes, joked as he served the coffee, kissed her aunt's powdered cheek when they left. Then they walked half a block, and her aunt dropped dead on the sidewalk. How close does the dragon's spume have to come? How wide does the crack in heaven have to split? What would people look like if we could see them as they are, soaked in honey, stung and swollen, reckless, pinned against time? So that's a beautiful poem. And here's a couple lines for you, okay? So here's a line. What if you knew? What if you knew? And you just go wherever you want with that, okay? Whatever's coming, you're just trying to write as quickly as possible. So that's one line for you. What if you knew, and just keep going. And then when you come to the end of a thought, go back to that line. What if you knew? Just return to that line, okay? Keep returning to it. And I love this too, what would people look like? What would people look like if we could see them as they are? What would people look like? And if you don't want to do any of those lines, Grace, here's a line for you. It's Tuesday. This is what I know. It's Tuesday. This is what I know. And you just deliver everything you got, okay? What if you knew? And you just keep going from there. What if you knew? And when you come to the end of a thought, start that line again. What if you knew?
And give me the next one.
What would people look like? What would people look like if you could see, And here's one for you. And this is really great. And this one is, if you really knew me, that might be the best. If you really knew me. Okay? All right. Talk to you in 5 minutes, Grace.
Okay.
So that's practice. That's wild writing practice.
Woo.
How was that for you?
That was amazing. Wow. I felt like I was on like this adventure, and it just kept going and moving and dancing and swirling and shoo. It was quite a journey.
Imagine, right? And you just did it for 5 minutes. So
Wow. Holy moly.
Oh, good. I'm glad you asked.
Very, very healing.
Good.
That is a very healing experience. It's inspiring. It really, it makes me feel inspired and just so touched.
Wow. I'm so glad. Yeah. Well, how beautiful is that? Here you are in the midst of an interview. You're the interviewer. You've got your list of questions, and now you're in a deeply moved place.
What better interview could I have?
Yeah, right. Yeah. That's really beautiful. I love the world for that reason. I'm glad. Good. Yeah.
Thank you.
You're welcome. You're welcome.
I really, I see the power of this experience in navigating through these times. Wow, I'm so glad I got that experience with you, because otherwise it's purely from my head. I don't, unless I have the experience, and that's what I want to so offer to everyone here, is to take away a healing tool, because these hearts are so tender, and they're so open, and we're in, as I said, this exciting time, but it's so challenging because we don't know how to navigate other than how we have, and it hasn't worked. Well, it took us where it did, and so it did work. I don't want to hate it at all, but it's time to crack open to that place where the light gets in, the place where, we can take that stand and shift, but it's living from so much deeper inside of our hearts and our souls.
Mm-hmm.
That's our truth. That is where we have to be living from in order to not only be able to ride these waves.
Mm-hmm.
You
Right.
know, it's so honest. It's just, it's right here. It's right here, whatever is right here. And not necessarily to believe stories because they take us down rabbit holes, but with awareness, be able to hear the story.
Mm-hmm.
It's writing stories, and you have to have the consciousness that you are not it.
Mm-hmm.
That yes, it's healing. It heals a part of you, but I feel like
Mm-hmm.
you have to remember where you are the consciousness. You're not the story, and you are the story. So you're honoring the human. You're honoring. I have to,
Mm-hmm.
and then I could just watch it move and watch the story go, and it's like, whoa, there you go.
Mm-hmm. Right, you're a portal, you're a story portal, you know, it's coming through you as opposed to
Yeah,
getting skunked up in the back and not wanting to
exactly.
look at it or not wanting to give words to it because you got a lot of stuff around it. So we're just clearing out
I
and
love that phrase, a story portal. That's fabulous because
um,
yeah, story portal. Um,
story portal.
it's
Yeah.
a clear channel. It's like having the channel, that portal that allows it to come through, but it's just not getting hooked on it. Yeah.
Well, that's
So
a whole other thing. That's meditation. That's meditation, you know, as like that practice. We're in the writing, you know, we're trying to stumble like Alice in Wonderland, you know, who's running
yes.
through the forest and she stumbles into the hole which sends her down to the Mad Hatter's tea party where all the color and the craziness begins. And so we want to use the writing to move as fast
Go
as
in it.
we can so we stumble. We want to
Yes.
stumble. We don't want to stay in our regular people's mind because
Right.
we know that and we understand our habits and our tendencies and we're not that interesting. So we want to surprise ourselves by doing things poorly or wrong or, you know, sometimes like when you're driving and you read a billboard really quickly and you read it wrong, it's often more interesting reading it wrong than it is to read it correctly
Mm.
because you hear words or you see words or you thought you saw words that don't really match and that opens up your imagination. So we're
Yes.
trying to open what?
I was just going to say that I'm not. I wasn't saying what I said to deny the story at all.
Yeah.
That's how you get to the other place, is you have to first
Move through it.
acknowledge it and honor it, and allow it to get messy, allow it to just
Yeah. Yeah.
however it
And
comes through.
and I can tell you that I've written for years and years and years the same damn story over and over as
Yes.
a way to make peace with it or to get on
Yes.
the other side of it. But I had to write the story like it was real, you
Uh-huh.
know, many, many times. So it's
Yes.
healing to do that versus again to keep it all in the background and
Right.
to pretend it's not there.
Yeah.
So, yeah, super healing.
Well, I love that experience. It was just um, I think the other thing I think about this experience is that it gives the opportunity for wherever you are
Mm-hmm.
along the line of the story,
Mm-hmm.
to heal that particular
Mm-hmm.
place and even move to the next part. It's kind of like when I think about retelling a story over and over again, you get to see different points of view.
Mm-hmm.
You get to look around and say, oh, wow, I didn't see that.
Right, right,
you know?
right. Right. And in fact, when I'm working with my students, we use 3 poems, but I teach 8 times a week. So I use the same 3 poems 8 times a week, writing from the same poems 8 times. And they're always different. It's never the
Yeah.
same. You know, it's like a hall of mirrors. It's just all, and you know, during the pandemic, I really shared this work. Can I talk about that a little bit?
It's so funny. I was just looking at that question.
Yeah. And so
Run.
what happened was, so I've been doing this work for 30 years and I've been teaching it for 20. And so, I have a lot of community of people who I work with. But when the pandemic struck, I thought, wow, man, this is so overwhelming and absolutely outside of our understanding. In 20 years and 25 years, when someone comes to us and says, you were there, what happened? What was your life like? How did it change? Who did you become? What was it like? We'll have wanted to have some documentation. We'll have wanted to take some notes. And so I created something really quickly for the pandemic, and it was 27 days of a video a day that people got sent. And the video was very short, 10 minutes of me talking about the practice, reading a poem twice, and giving jump off lines, just like we just did. And that was the practice. It was free. I did it in, I think it was April, it got sent out, and it just kind of went crazy. 3,500 people signed up for it from around the world.
Wow.
And so people were basically getting these videos every day and having an opportunity to connect with themselves on the page daily during the pandemic. And the work that, the poems that I gave them and the way that I sort of navigated it through was as a way, it's like, okay, team, let's take this journey together. And so it was an amazing thing, because I think that it helped people ground into this new way and this new world. It helped them connect to themselves, because so much was so unknown to us. And also it created community. We created a Facebook page, and like 900 people are in it. And so people are finding, because a lot of folks are home alone. A lot of folks are home alone. And so it created community for people, and also a way to share of themselves through the writing in a way that I think it's just been really healing for folks. So
What an
that,
amazing offering.
yeah, so
Really?
we moved on. That particular thing is gone. What are we in month 4 now? But we've created a wild family. So now we have a family of people who work together, and they get 3 poems a week, and there's a live component. And, these people are still with me, and we are still in this journey, this COVID journey as human beings, moving into the next thing and the next thing. And there's a lot going on in our world, the politics, and it's deeply troubling time. And to have a community and to have writing has been really, really beautiful.
Absolutely. Wow. You're doing just such a service, and I am very grateful for what you are offering to people.
Yeah.
It's a story portal.
Yeah, it's a story portal, baby. I'm happy too. I'm happy that this practice that I've been doing for so long is valuable for people and helps them stay connected to themselves
Yes.
during this time.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Just amazing.
Good.
So we're coming up on our time to kind of wrap it up, and there's a couple of things. One is there anything more that you would like to add about this practice, or do you feel pretty complete with that?
Yeah, I feel pretty complete with it. There's more to the practice, but I think
Yes.
just really simply, I would say this. One of my really the things that make me happy are when people who have never written, or who didn't see themselves as writers, or who never had success with writing, I'd sit down and they were good for the first minute and then they just hit a wall. This is a practice for all people. And so it really draws in so many people who think they can't write or who have never written. And that is my big joy, because it's not about how smart you are, or how fancy you are, or how many good stories you have at all. It's not about grammar. It's not about any of that kind of stuff that we learned. It's really a human being practice. It's about, can you be a human being on the page and greet me from that human place? And yes, we are using words, but we are saying yes to what's coming, and we are just basically showing up as human beings on the page, and that's all it takes. And that's really wonderful for me. We're using writing as a healing tool to be human beings.
It's so beautiful. It very non-threatening and safe, for sure.
Yeah.
You can, you don't,
You don't
You
have
don't
to
have to
be
even have
fancy.
a degree. You don't have to
No,
have
it's not
a
about that.
diploma.
We don't, yeah, it's not about that. It's a welcoming yourself back home
Yeah,
practice.
beautiful.
Welcome, welcome, welcome. So,
That's so beautiful.
yeah, thanks for letting me share it, Grace.
Yeah, and I also, we are inviting you all to really connect with Laurie. She has a website. We will post all of her information at 27powers.org. Yes. And she has all kinds of offerings there. And we have something too that you'll see as part of this summit that Laurie is offering, if you want to mention it, or we'll just leave it as a surprise.
Let's leave it as a surprise.
Awesome. Okay, well, thanks again for joining me here today. I'm so grateful you were here. What a great experience. Thank you.
Thanks, Grace. Appreciate it. Thanks to
Yes.
everyone listening.